All right, so we're gonna go through our highlight boot camp, and we're gonna start out with a mannequin that's about mid-length. We'll make sure that we give you the one that you need to work on. So first off, we're gonna start off with sectioning it into 3 sections. So we're gonna divide the front from the back. So I'm gonna go from the high point to the top of the ear on the right, and go ahead and clip that out of my way. And then I'm gonna do the same thing on her left side. Stand up, Ellie, sit up straight. Okay, so top of the head, high point of the head to the top of the ear. Again, vertical section from the high point to the ear, what it should look like. And now we're just gonna leave the back as one section. So we're not doing quadrants, we're just doing those front 2 sections, leave the back as one larger section. To get started, our focus is to make sure that we are giving you guys tools to be able to move as quickly as possible as you're getting started out, because we know that's something you're working on. So we're gonna start off at the mid kind of section of the head, slightly, on Ellie it's slightly above the top of her ear, and I'm gonna do a diagonal back section, or slice if you will, and then I'm just gonna repeat that on the left side. So at this point we could be sectioned out into 2 top sections in the crown area. Just to make it simpler, I'll go ahead and do that. So again, mimicking right side and left side, and I'll turn it so you can see. But as you can see now, I have somewhat of a V shape with my sectioning. And again, it's just falling below that occipital bone in the center. I'm gonna go ahead and tilt Ellie's head forward so that I can have a good angle. And if this was my real client, I would ask her to put her chin down slightly so that I could get to this section easily. From here, I'm gonna go ahead and do a subsection that's quite thin. And then I'm gonna go ahead and do a traditional weave. And what does that mean? You can kind of see if you set it up against my hand, the spacing that's between each of those section or pieces that I pick up. Next, I'm gonna grab my foil. If you are a board user, feel free. I'm not. And what we're gonna see here is that we have placed that foil right along at the root area. Next up, I'm gonna grab some product. So this amount is what I feel is a good amount to start with, especially if I'm going from mids to ends to start. If this was just a root touch-up highlight, I would not need that much product, and obviously I wouldn't be applying here. This is only if we're trying to get more lightness and brightness from the mids to ends. So go ahead and place your hand underneath the foil so that we can get strong saturation all the way through the mids to ends. Next up, if we're needing more product, go ahead and reload. And again, maybe this is what we do for a touch-up highlight. And then we're gonna go in and just not aggressively hit that top of the foil, working our way up so that we can make sure it's really saturated as close to the root area as possible, but not past the foil line. Gonna go ahead and secure this in. I use the pointy part of my comb to fold those corners in. Number 1, it helps to secure it so it doesn't slide. Number 2, it helps to get it out of my way when I'm working into the next section. So from here, I'm gonna do the same thing. Ellie, can you move your head the other way? Thank you so much. So from here, again, a subsection, and then from there, I can weave out of that. Because what happens here, this is what it should look like. And you can tell when I place my foil here, I'm gonna have a pretty even foil placement where if I don't subsection, here's what happens. If I just take this wide space and I weave through that whole section, what happens with the foil, and this is what not to do, what happens with the foil then, as I put that in there, I could try to push it up there to the top, trying to match up to that part line, but over time, what's really gonna happen is it's gonna pull down to wherever the depth of that weave was. So that's why we don't want deep weaves. We want to keep them pretty shallow. So that's why we subsection it first. So again, subsection, thin enough to keep control, do a traditional weave out of that. And you can see the traditional weave gives some dimension. Our micro stitch, which we'll show in a little bit, is going to give less dimension, more of a soft blend. And then a thin slice is gonna give the least amount of dimension, a complete softness and blend. So right now it's traditional, so it's giving some dimension. We can see that there's going to be some of this red in this situation left next to the blonde, so that the blonde actually has an opportunity to pop next to the other color that's on the head. So again, I'm gonna fold up all the way to the top. Sharper side of your comb to help you fold those in quickly, and then we're gonna move forward. Okay, so from here, Ellie's gonna sit straight for me again. And now we're gonna go in and work with a horizontal in between those two diagonals. So go ahead and drop this whole back section down. Comb through it. We're kind of creating a really wide upside down A, capital A. How's my horizontal, Raina? A little off, we'll fix that. So again, all of this is going to be dependent on the head shape that you're working on, the size of their head, but also how much depth are we wanting to leave out. And what we know is when we're working in the back of the head, this area that I'm in right now, it's gonna play a very small role in the total look of this client's blonding. So if I am only working within our 120 grams for a full highlight, then I need to be mindful of not over blonding the back of her head where I can't see it as much. Not just visually from the front, but the hair lays on top and it covers it up. So I don't wanna go crazy with my product application and the amount of time that I spend here. I wanna make sure I'm mindful that this isn't playing as big of a role as the hair coming from the top of the client's head. So again, I'm gonna work that up. Now here's another thing about this. When we're trying to get highlights up to the scalp, it's really important to pay attention to that at the front of the head. It's not as important here in the crown area. You're never, hardly ever gonna see the top or the root area of someone's hair color there. So we're not saying don't make it look good. We're just saying, do you have to be as precise and get it up to the top? Not nearly as much as you do in the front. So from here, I can kind of eyeball the center of my foil. I can go ahead and do another diagonal section from the left side and also the right side. And then we're really just gonna repeat. So one other thing to think about as I'm going through this is, what if I have a client who's got longer hair and they pull their hair up a lot? Well, at the very beginning, I could have started by placing, one or two foils right back here along her hairline and being like strategic about that. It still, again, doesn't need the whole head done, just for that purpose. So from here, now let's look at this. Look at where this is gonna actually be living. So I know I'm paying attention to how this hair is going to live and pushing it out into here to get my coverage in the back of the head, because underneath there, we're not seeing anything. So we wanna make sure we're mindful of getting out to those edges. So maybe my subsection isn't all the way to the very center, but slightly pushed outside of that. So my typical weave, traditional weave, that's gonna give dimension, A-okay in the back of the head. If you're struggling with that foil placement being all the way to the scalp, check the width of your section that you're actually weaving. I'll show you on the other side what that means. Hold it. This should be super quick. And moving on. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. If our section is too wide, if I decide I'm gonna weave this whole section out, and then I take my foil. This is a really curved part of the head. And so when we take a straight foil and a straight comb and we place it in the center of a really curved part of the head, what happens is this pull is going to happen on both sides. So it's close in the center, but everything else is getting farther away from it. So again, would that be maybe all right if I wasn't wanting to go up to the root? I could do more of a foliage feel with something like that and keep it away because I'm not planning on going that high anyway. But in this situation, honestly, if I needed to do this whole section, I would break it into two. Now, something we already talked about was, do I really need a lot in this center right now? My answer is no. So I'm gonna, instead of going from the center, I'm gonna focus on where does it matter, which to me is over here on the side. So again, I'm gonna subsection from there. And then I'm going to do my traditional stitch in a smaller space instead of trying to extend it all the way out. The other option here would be to go ahead and place two foils in that one row. So can you see how much higher that foil placement actually got? Because I wasn't going across that whole wide section there. When we get to the ends, remember, you're gonna waste time if you try to do spaghetti rolls. So we wanna make sure that we get saturation. All we need to do is take our brush, grab it, and then place it back into the foil. Now, if someone's hair is like really, really long, you would do the same thing. You would just be down here doing it. So I would grab it and then pull it back up to the foil, work in the saturation. But again, it's not a twirl, 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 apply, apply, apply. It should be quite easy and quick. Easy for us to say. And then next, I'm gonna go back to my horizontal in the center, and then just continue on with that traditional weave after I subsection. And see, this spacing is really nice, right? The curve of the head isn't affected so much there. Another thing to be mindful of is when we start that application, I'm really using the head or even her neck to kind of help me brace it so it doesn't slide as I apply this lightener. If I'm not doing a good hold of it, I could be pulling the foil down as I do that. So really make sure you're doing something to brace it. And then when you replace with your hand, you're pushing up toward the scalp with your hand as you're pulling down with your brush with the lightener. So it doesn't look like it, but that is what is happening. My hand is kind of pushing toward the scalp from underneath the foil as I apply the color so that I'm not letting the brush pull it. Fold, 1, 2, and done. so now we've got a smaller triangle coming from the top of the head. This is where we're going to shift and just keep moving with horizontals. So this one's gonna look the same as the others. Keeps getting a little smaller though. And what we really wanna pay attention to is, again, this is where it matters, right? Like starting at that, maybe this foil here is where that's the placement or the draping that's gonna actually go over the back of the head. So that is the more visible. So here's where, you know, thankfully we're working in smaller sections, but we really wanna be mindful to make sure if someone wants it up to the root, we're getting it all the way up to her scalp. Another thing to remember is lived in color. It's very popular, but not everybody wants it. So make sure we're not relying on, I'm gonna root shadow her. I have lots of clients that don't get a root shadow at all because they want that brightness all the way up to their scalp, mainly because they have gray. And so they want that highlight to really help blend their gray when it grows out. So not everyone's getting a root shadow, so don't rely on it. Make sure we're getting clean edges at the top. One of my friends says, whatever your lightener looks like while it's on the hair is what your highlights are gonna look like. So just remember that. So horizontal, following a horizontal. And I'm feeling like I'm gonna do this one and one more, and then the whole back of the head is done. Here you see me standing kind of to the side of what I'm working on because I'm trying to make sure everything is easily seen on the phone camera, but if I was really doing this, I would be standing right in front of the section that I'm working on to make sure I'm getting that even and controlled placement. And that is the back of the head.
All right, so now we're doing the front two quadrants of the head. I'm gonna start on her right side and then we'll move to the left. On the left side, we're gonna do a money piece, but on this right side, we're just gonna do like a traditional to the scalp. We're gonna do slices, but I'm not gonna do a money piece on this right side. So what we're gonna do is, so when you're starting your own highlighting on your own clients, and you're doing the back first, the back is a great place to start, especially if you're a little bit slower. So if you need to rinse before you're all the way done foiling, it's easier to rinse the back. I need to note how much lightener I have left if we're just doing a full highlight in 120 grams, so I know how much product I've got to get the rest of the front done. So this front right section, what I'm gonna do is start off of her hairline. I'm gonna go diagonal back from just her hairline. So I'm gonna start here and go diagonal back. Start there. And what I'm gonna do is slices. So you need to do a thin enough slice that you can have really good saturation in your foil. If you don't have great saturation, it's gonna be uneven, it's gonna look a little wonky. So there's my slice. I'm gonna go up to the scalp there. I've got lots of tension on that hair. What I'm gonna do is unload my product about an inch down from the top of the foil. Slowly work my way up. Put my hand underneath and then saturate the ends. Same thing, just flip the end of that hair into that foil. Fold it in half. So I'm gonna keep moving up. So whenever you do this kind of foil placement, what it's gonna look like when she pulls her hair up is she'll have ribbons of blonde. So when she pulls all this back and up into a ponytail, she'll have, okay, so there was blonde here, there's gonna be some, if she wasn't so blonde on her hairline already, she'd have some darker pieces in the mix of this, probably similar to this, where you can see like blonde here, some darkness there, and then she'll have blonde all the way up to her scalp. So it's not gonna be like a solid sheet of blonde. So there's another slice. Unloading most of my product here, about an inch down from the top of the foil. Slowly working my way up so that way I don't have bleeders. If you need to lock in your foil, go underneath, lock in that foil, and then I usually just fold it in on one side. So what I'm doing foil placement wise is I started here. As I'm moving up the head, I'm gonna slowly go more and more horizontal, and then once I'm up to the part line, I'll be basically totally horizontal with her part line. All right, so as I'm moving up the head, I'm pivoting. So I'm gonna go a little bit more horizontal here. So here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to take a piece this thick. Even this thick is too much hair to try and fit into a foil. So if we're trying to get this into a foil, one, you're not gonna all the way get to the scalp all the way. You're gonna have lots of root there already. And then two, this saturation, you're still gonna get a lift. It's probably not gonna be as great of a lift as what you're hoping to get. So if I was gonna slice this in half, this is probably something more of what I'm looking for, saturation wise, just so I can get the most even, nice lift that I need. I'm able to get all the way up to the root. typically, I'm thinking I'm gonna do 2 more foils here, one here and one here. Typically my last 2 foils at the very part line, I'll go ahead and weave it, just so it's a little bit softer right at the root. Now, if they want a solid foil all the way up to the part line, I could do a slice, but just know that as that grows out, it's gonna be a lot harsher of a grow out line. Okay, and then this last one, I'm gonna do another weave. This will be the very top one on her part line.
Ellie won't move her head for you.
No. Gotta stand on my tiptoes. There we go. So when you're foiling like this and you're doing horizontals all the way up to the head, just know that it's gonna be a blanket of color going on top. So if you're doing a diagonal back or switching up your foil pattern, that's okay. Just know that whenever you're doing it horizontal, these are gonna be blankets, like sheets of blonde laying on top. So there are places where you'll wanna do a weave, there's places where you wanna do a slice. Of course, you can incorporate that however you need to be, but just know the effect that it's gonna give on the head. All right, now we're doing the left side. So this side's gonna be very similar to that right side, except I'm gonna add a money piece to this side. So what I'm gonna do is, sometimes I'll pre-section it out to where I'm not dealing with all of this hair that I don't need in my way. Other times I'll just leave it. In this instance, I'm gonna go ahead and just section it out. That way this hair is not in my way. So now I know I'm only dealing with this hair. So when you're doing a money piece, the goal is, of course, brighter on the face, but also when they pull it back, it'll be pretty solid blonde with all of this. The surface will be really, really bright. So what I'm gonna do is, you kind of have to go off of their hairline, and not everyone's hairline looks the same. Hers is a little all over the place because we see it's flat here, it dips back here, and then it's flat again here. So knowing I'm gonna have to do probably 3 different foils right there so that it's all the way close and tight to the scalp. So knowing that, I'm gonna go right here, right before where it dips back in that recession there. So this first foil right against the hairline, I'm going to section that out there. Go. A doll head has a ton of hair. Their hairline is super thick. Every other person in this world does not have this thick of a hairline. Okay, so with this section here, what I'm gonna do is a micro stitch. So it's the tiniest, you're gonna just barely bounce your comb. You're gonna pick up a lot of hair. So I'm gonna do a, like I said, a micro stitch right on that hairline. So this is gonna be blonde. This is gonna be her natural. The effect that that's gonna give is when you pull this back, this is gonna be like a natural blend right off the hairline. After that, it's gonna be pretty solid. Going right up to the root there. whenever I'm foiling like this, I'll tell my client that I'm gonna be right on their face for just a few minutes, because I will go like this and rest my foil on their face for just a minute. It's usually not uncomfortable or anything crazy, but I just give them a heads up. Okay, so there's my micro stitch. After that, I'm gonna do 2 back-to-back slices. So they're gonna be really, really thin. You want really good saturation in your money piece if you want it to be lighter. It's gonna typically be a little bit lighter anyways because that hair is finer textured and it processes really fast, but you also don't want like big chunks in the front. So there's my slice. I left nothing out. So I'm going right off of this foil, a small little slice. And then I'm gonna do one more slice right here. Again, leaving no hair out. A really small, fine slice. Okay, so now I'm moving up the hairline. So now I'm focusing here where it kind of dips back. And honestly, I might stop there. So see in the hairline, this, I can put a flat foil against here. And then I could put a flat foil against, ooh, she holds her head still. I can put a flat foil here, and then I could put one probably here, and then one here. So really, I just break it up to, like I said, however their hairline is. If it's really rounded, it's gonna get hard to get a foil up to the scalp.
But most people don't have that round and
No,
heavy
typically,
of a
yes.
front hairline.
So this one's a micro stitch again. I'm just barely just bouncing my comb. Same thing, my foil's on my client's face. Just for a second. So then when I go here, I'm gonna fold that foil so that way it's out of my way later. So I did my micro stitch, now I'm doing 2 slices.
Does every money piece only need 3 foils?
No. So it really just depends on what your client is wanting. If she's wanting a bolder money piece, of course you're gonna pack in more foils. I feel like this is just like a good standard. If she wants to be a little bit brighter on the face, she likes the look of a money piece, I typically will ask my clients, like, do you like the look of a money piece or do you want it blended all throughout? If they like the look of a money piece, I'll typically do 3, 4-ish foils. It also depends on their hairline, what's their density like there. So it's all just situational. I say a good starting place is about 3 foils though. Same thing with if they part their hair or where they part their hair. If they're always parting down the middle, this is a great easy, oh, I'm not weaving, I'm slicing. This is a great format to follow. If they move their part all over and just flip-flop it, then you might want to leave a little bit of a veil whenever you're foiling, and I will show you what that looks like too. Okay, and now we're here at the front. The same thing, I'm gonna go in and micro stitch this and then 2 slices right after that. Okay, money piece is done. Now I can unclip the rest of my quadrant. So now this is the section of hair that I am working on. What I'm gonna do is horizontal slices all the way up this quadrant. I'll show you what the veil looks like at the very top, if you choose to do that. So just horizontal subsection, or slice it, then subsection it. Still keeping my slices pretty thin. So at this point, when your client pulls her hair back, all of it is going to be blonde right around the face. So this is just within the quadrant there. Okay, so here's my last 2 sections that I'm gonna do, the last two foils. So I'm gonna make these ones weaves again. If I can get the foil. All right, and this very last one, doesn't matter if you're gonna do a weave or a slice. If you decide to leave a veil, typically what I'll do is just take this, a small thin section right off the top, right where they part, get that out of the way, subsection this, and then I'll weave this. So then, if this isn't a foil, this is gonna hang out on top of the foil. Typically it's dark, or maybe grown out blonde. It's sitting on top of the foil, so that way if she doesn't part right here exactly where I foiled it every single time, there's at least some dark in between these two blonde foils, so that way it's not just a solid straight line of blonde.
Because if they didn't part their hair down perfectly down the middle, then it would look like almost like a back to back or chunky,
Yes, or maybe
nothing on one side.
yes, heavier blonde on one side and not as blonde on the other side. And there's that. If I'm gonna do a veil though on anything, I'm gonna do it on all of them. I'm not gonna just do veil on one side, but this was just for the video.
So this is the money piece veil side.
Yep.
And this is no money piece, no veil
Yep.
side. Cool.
Okay, so this is the whole head of the boot camp highlights. You'll also be doing some work with Cameron, but this is a good guide for you to start as a baseline for your highlight guest for yourself. Remember, if they needed some light underneath, then you could go in and pop in just a couple of foils down there just to make you see this is what we have left over for what we actually did on this mannequin. So again, this was the full highlight amount. We didn't have to remix. On remixing, just know that lightener is strongest when it's freshly batched. And so if you're working slower, you know you're gonna need more bowls. Don't try to mix it all at once. Go back and remix so that you get just as much power from your second bowl. So you would let this process for at least 30 minutes, and one of us needs to be able to see it before you rinse it out. So that would be me or Raina or Amanda or Cameron. So happy highlighting.